The weight of an untamed mind. Overthinking. It creeps in when the world goes quiet. You sit alone, perhaps at night, and a single thought starts to loop. What did they mean when they said that? Did I sound foolish earlier? What if I fail tomorrow? One spark becomes a fire. A passing worry becomes a storm. Before long, you're replaying conversations, predicting disasters, and criticizing yourself for not being better. The irony is painful. The more we think, the less we act. The more we ruminate, the less we live. And here's the hidden cost. Overthinking isn't harmless. It corrodes your confidence. It robs you of sleep. It makes you hesitant when life demands courage. It convinces you that certainty is possible when in truth it never is. The Stoics understood this danger 2,000 years ago. They lived in turbulent times, wars, betrayals, plagues, the constant threat of death. And yet, rather than drown in worry, they developed a philosophy that treated the restless mind as something to train, not something to obey. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher emperor, wrote in his Meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." Notice his focus. He doesn't say you can silence the world. He says you can silence yourself. That's what this journey is about. 7 Stoic hacks, 7 timeless practices to break the chains of overthinking. Not abstract theories, but practical tools you can use the next time your mind starts to spiral. Why we overthink. Before we dive into the hacks, let's be brutally honest. Overthinking isn't a sign of intelligence. It's a failure of discipline. The Stoics would call it a misuse of your rational faculty. The human mind was designed for clarity, for action, for judgment. When left untended, it runs amok like an untrained horse, dragging you into ditches you never meant to enter. Seneca put it plainly, we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Think about that. How many of your sleepless nights were caused not by what happened, but by what you feared might happen? How many opportunities have you lost, not because you were incapable, but because you convinced yourself you would fail before you even tried? Overthinking is pain created twice. First in the mind, then in the consequences of hesitation. The Stoics offer us a challenge, to distinguish between what belongs to us and what doesn't. The moment you see that most of what you worry about is outside your control, the noise begins to fade. The Stoic approach. Unlike modern self-help, Stoicism doesn't tell you to just be positive or stop worrying. That's childish advice. You don't silence a barking dog by telling it to hush. You train it, you redirect its energy, you show it who's in command. The Stoic mind is like a disciplined soldier. It hears the chaos of battle, but it doesn't panic. It decides calmly where to step and when to strike. Overthinking is nothing but disorder in the ranks of your thoughts. The Stoics restore order. They do it through principles we'll explore in detail, focusing only on what you can control, distinguishing opinion from fact, creating deliberate pauses before responding, turning criticism into training, embracing discomfort as a teacher, practicing detachment from outcomes, living each day as if it were complete. Each of these is a hack to cut through overthinking, because each shifts your attention away from endless speculation and back towards purposeful living, the promise of mastery. Let me ask you, what would your life look like if you silenced that endless commentary in your head? If you could walk into a room without replaying every sentence afterwards? If you could make decisions without agonizing over what people might think? Freedom, real freedom, begins when your mind stops being your jailer and starts being your servant. The Stoics believed that peace wasn't found in escaping life's noise, but in learning to master the one voice that always follows you, your own. That's where we're going. Over the next 7 parts, we'll journey through the hacks the Stoics left us, each one a blade to cut through the tangled weeds of worry. By the end, you'll have a toolkit for life, a way to step into any moment with clarity, strength, and calm. So take a breath, set aside your doubts, and let's begin with the first Stoic hack, the discipline of control, the art of separating what is yours from what is not. Hack 1, the discipline of control. Imagine this. You're lying awake at 2 a.m., mind racing. The big meeting tomorrow keeps playing out in your head. What if they don't like your idea? What if you stumble over your words? What if your colleague outshines you? You rehearse answers, invent scenarios, argue with voices that aren't even in the room. By morning, you're drained before the day has even begun. This is overthinking at its purest, wrestling with shadows, exhausting yourself over things you cannot command. And here's the hard truth the Stoics understood. Most of what we worry about isn't ours to control in the first place. The Stoic distinction. Epictetus, a former slave-turned-teacher, opened his Enchiridion with one of philosophy's most powerful lines: "Some things are in our control and others not. Within our control are opinion, pursuit, desire, and aversion. Not in our control our body, property, reputation, office, and all that is not our own doing. It's simple. You control your thoughts, your choices, your actions. Everything else, what people say, what they think, what tomorrow may bring, is outside your command. The overthinker flips this. They obsess over what they cannot change, while neglecting the only realm where freedom actually lies, themselves. Why this matters? Think about how much of your mental chatter lives in the wrong column. What if they laugh at me? Their reaction, not yours. What if I get rejected? The decision lies with them, not you. What if the economy collapses? Markets are not under your command. Every moment you spend here is wasted fuel. It's like shouting at the rain, hoping it stops. Meanwhile, the umbrella in your hand, the power to prepare, to adjust, to respond, remains unused. Overthinking thrives because we blur the line. We trick ourselves into believing that if we think enough, we'll control the uncontrollable. The Stoic hack is to redraw the boundary daily, ruthlessly, until it becomes second nature. A modern example. Picture two job seekers. Both have interviews tomorrow. The first spends the night rehearsing how the panel might look at her, worrying whether they'll like her voice, imagining scenarios where she fumbles. By dawn, she's exhausted. The second does something different. She spends an hour reviewing the role description, clarifying her talking points, laying out her clothes, and then goes to bed early. She knows the outcome. The decision isn't hers, but her preparation, her composure, her effort, that belongs to her entirely. Which of the two walks into the interview calmly? Which wastes energy fighting phantoms? Practical Stoic exercises. Let's ground this hack in action. The Stoics weren't armchair thinkers, they were practitioners. Here are 4 exercises you can use immediately to silence the spiral of overthinking. 1. The 2 lists method. On paper, draw 2 columns. Label one within my control, the other outside my control. When your mind starts looping, write down the worry and place it in the right column. Then, and this is vital, ignore the second list. Put your energy only into what lives on the first. 2. The question of ownership. Whenever you feel anxiety rising, pause and ask, do I own this? If it's your action, your decision, your response, the answer is yes. If it depends on another person, the weather, or tomorrow's unknown, no. By naming ownership, you create distance between yourself and the illusion of control. 3. The pre-mortem exercise. Borrowed from Stoic practice, imagine the worst has already happened. You've been criticized, or you've failed. Now ask, what do I still control here? You'll see that even in failure, you still own your dignity, your future choices, and your next step. This realization cuts worry down to size. 4. Daily reflection. Marcus Aurelius, despite ruling the Roman Empire, ended each day with reflection. Ask yourself at night, where did I waste energy today on what wasn't mine? Where did I act on what was? Over time, you'll start catching yourself before the overthinking spiral even begins. The freedom in control. Here's the paradox. The less you try to control what isn't yours, the more powerful you feel. Why? Because your effort is no longer scattered. Your mind isn't at war with the wind. It's disciplined, clear, and purposeful. Marcus Aurelius wrote, if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment. This is the heart of the hack. Overthinking says, if only I could control the world, I'd be at peace. Stoicism replies, if only you would control yourself, you'd already be free. So the first Stoic hack to silence overthinking is this: guard the boundary. Train your mind daily to sort the controllable from the uncontrollable. Place your energy only in what's yours. Ignore the rest as noise. Think of it like tending a garden. You can water the plants, pull the weeds, and shape the soil, but you cannot command the sun, or the rain, or the seasons. The wise gardener doesn't sit paralyzed, worrying whether the clouds will form. He gets to work every day, on the patch of earth that is his. That patch, your mind, your choices, your responses, is where freedom lives. And when you claim it, the storm of overthinking begins to calm. Next, we move to hack 2, distinguishing opinion from fact, a skill that stops your thoughts from lying to you. Hack 2, distinguishing opinion from fact. Think of the last time you replayed a conversation in your head. Perhaps someone gave you a brief look during a meeting, and hours later, you were still thinking, they must think I'm incompetent. Or a friend didn't reply to your message quickly enough, and your mind whispered, they're ignoring me, maybe they don't value me anymore. Notice what happened. It wasn't the look, it wasn't the delay, it was your interpretation that created the storm. This is one of the most common engines of overthinking, mistaking opinions for facts. And the Stoics were crystal clear on this. Epictetus said, it is not things themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about things. The facts are usually simple. Someone looked at you. A message wasn't answered. Your boss raised their voice. But the judgments, the stories we attach to those facts, are what spiral into anxiety, shame, or self-criticism, the trap of assumptions. Overthinking feeds on assumptions dressed up as certainty. Fact: your partner hasn't texted you back in 2 hours. Opinion: they must be angry with me. Fact: your manager asked to see you tomorrow. Opinion: I must be in trouble. Fact: your presentation ended and the room was quiet. Opinion: they hated it. How much suffering is created in that gap? And worse, how much energy is wasted defending yourself against stories that might not even be true? The Stoics would urge us to slow down and separate what is observable reality from the narrative our mind is weaving. When you do this, half the noise of overthinking simply evaporates. The Stoic lens. Marcus Aurelius practiced this constantly. In his meditations he wrote, "Remove the judgment, and you are saved. Remove the opinion, and you are safe." It sounds radical, but it's liberating. Imagine stripping away the stories you tell yourself, leaving only the bare facts. Suddenly, the mind is quieter. The situation is smaller, more manageable. You're no longer wrestling with ghosts, only dealing with what actually is. This discipline is not about denial, it's about clarity. By questioning your assumptions, you don't dismiss reality, you sharpen it. Modern applications. Think of how this plays out today. Social media thrives on opinions. A post gets fewer likes than usual, and your mind whispers, "I'm losing relevance. People don't care anymore." But the fact is simply that fewer people tapped a button. The story is your creation. At work, a colleague seems curt in their email. Instantly, you assume hostility. But perhaps they were rushing. Perhaps they were stressed. The only fact is a short message. Everything else is speculation. In relationships, silence is often filled with stories. Someone doesn't laugh at your joke, and suddenly you're convinced you've embarrassed yourself. Yet the fact might be as small as them not hearing you properly. When you mistake opinion for fact, you hand control of your peace over to assumptions. When you distinguish the two, you reclaim your calm. Practical Stoic exercises. Here are 4 ways to practice this hack. 1. Fact versus story journaling. The next time you're caught in overthinking, write down what happened. First, list only the facts, what you saw, heard, observed. Then write the story your mind is telling about those facts. Most times you'll be shocked at how thin the facts are compared to the elaborate drama you've constructed. 2. The courtroom test. Imagine you had to present your overthinking to a judge. What actual evidence do you have? Could you prove beyond doubt that your interpretation is true? If not, then you're dealing with opinion, not fact. 3. The 3 questions. When you catch yourself spiraling, pause and ask, what actually happened? What am I telling myself about what happened? What else could this mean? This not only separates fact from story, but also reminds you that there are always multiple interpretations, not just the harsh one your anxious mind defaults to. 4. Delay the verdict. If you're unsure whether something is fact or opinion, practice withholding judgment. Tell yourself, I don't yet know, time will reveal it. Marcus Aurelius himself did this. He reminded himself daily not to rush into assumptions. By delaying, you starve the overthinking of fuel, the freedom of clarity. Here's the beauty of this hack. Once you master distinguishing opinion from fact, overthinking loses half its power. Why? Because most of your spirals aren't based on reality at all. They're based on stories. When you strip them away, the mind quiets, like a storm that suddenly has no clouds left to feed it. Seneca said, "We are often more frightened than hurt, and we suffer more in imagination than in reality." He wasn't dismissing suffering. He was pointing to the truth. Much of our torment is self-inflicted by believing our opinions are facts. Closing thought. So the second Stoic hack to silence overthinking is this. Train yourself to separate what happened from what you think about what happened. Facts are light, opinions are weighted. Drop the weights and you walk freer. The next time you feel your mind spiraling, pause and ask, is this fact or is this story? That single question is often enough to bring you back to ground. And with that clarity, you're ready for the next discipline. The third Stoic hack, creating the pause. A simple yet life-changing practice that puts a gap between the stimulus and your reaction, breaking the cycle of compulsive overthinking. Hack 3. Creating the pause. Picture this. You receive a sharp email from a colleague, full of clipped sentences and blunt phrases. Your first impulse, to fire back, matching their tone with your own. But before you even hit send, your mind starts racing. What if I overreact? What if I sound weak if I don't reply immediately? What if this ruins my standing? This is where overthinking thrives, in the gapless space between trigger and reaction. You feel something, you react instantly, and in that blur you hand your peace away. The Stoics, however, taught a different way. They trained themselves to create a pause, a sacred moment of silence, however brief, in which thought can be examined, emotions can settle, and choices can be made deliberately. The power of the pause. Viktor Frankl, though not a Stoic himself, echoed their wisdom centuries later. Between stimulus and response there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. This is exactly what the Stoics practiced. When anger rose, when fear knocked, when shame whispered, they paused. They refused to be puppets of their first impulse. Overthinking, ironically, isn't caused by too much space. It's caused by the wrong kind of space, the endless replay of imagined scenarios. What the Stoics created was the right space, a short, deliberate pause that turns chaos into clarity. Marcus Aurelius's discipline. Marcus Aurelius was the most powerful man in the world. Armies answered to him, courtiers flattered him, enemies plotted against him. He could have reacted instantly to any insult, any slight, any rumor, yet in his meditations he writes, "Hold fast to this sound rule of life, to do nothing thoughtlessly." For Marcus, the pause was not a weakness, it was mastery. Anyone can lash out, anyone can panic, but to hold yourself in that small moment, to breathe before choosing, that is strength. Why we struggle to pause. Biology works against us. The brain is wired for speed, fight, flight, freeze. When you feel threatened by criticism, rejection, embarrassment, the body floods with adrenaline. The urge to act, to defend, is powerful. This made sense in the wild. If a wolf leapt from the bushes, you didn't pause to reflect. But in the modern world, most threats are social, not physical, and reacting without thought often causes more harm than good. A rash comment ruins trust, a panicked decision backfires. That's why the pause matters more now than ever. It's the antidote to both impulsive reaction and spiraling rumination. Practical Stoic exercises. Here's how to cultivate the pause in your own life. 1. The 3 breaths rule. When triggered, whether by anger, anxiety, or fear, stop and take 3 deliberate breaths before responding. Just 3. Enough to interrupt the chain reaction and remind your body that you're not under physical attack. 2. Label the emotion. In the pause, quietly name what you're feeling. Anger, embarrassment, insecurity. Labeling reduces intensity. It transforms a storm into something you can hold, examine, and decide how to act upon. 3. Ask the Stoic question. Marcus would ask himself, will this matter in a year? Epictetus would ask, is this within my control? Either question punctures the drama. Often the answer shrinks the problem instantly. 4. Delay action. Practice postponing your reaction. Tell yourself, I'll decide in an hour, I'll decide tomorrow. More often than not, you'll find the urge fades. Time reveals what emotion hides. Everyday scenarios. Let's make this tangible. At work, you receive criticism in front of others. Instead of snapping back, you pause, breathe, and reply calmly. Result, you preserve your dignity and prevent escalation. At home, a partner forgets something important. Your impulse is to accuse. Instead, you pause, reflect, and speak later from clarity rather than hurt. Online, a stranger leaves a cruel comment. Instead of launching into a rebuttal, you pause. More often than not, silence is the wiser answer. Each pause breaks the cycle of overthinking before it spirals. The strength of silence. Seneca reminded us, no man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself. The pause is where proof happens. It's the test of your philosophy. Will you be carried away by instinct, or will you stand rooted, unmoved? Silence, chosen deliberately, is not weakness. It's the loudest declaration that your mind is your own. The third Stoic hack to silence overthinking is to build the habit of pausing. Insert space, claim it, guard it fiercely. In that space lies the power to stop being a slave to every thought, every fear, every insult. Think of your life as a piece of music. Without pauses, it's just noise. With them, it becomes rhythm, harmony, power. So the next time your thoughts race, do not rush to react. Stop, breathe, name it, choose, for in that pause you are free. Next, we'll explore Hack 4, Reframing Criticism, how to transform one of life's sharpest triggers into fuel for growth rather than fodder for endless rumination. Hack 4, Reframing Criticism. Few things feed overthinking more than criticism. A passing remark, a harsh comment, even a raised eyebrow, and suddenly you're replaying it all day. What did they mean by that? Do others secretly agree? Am I not good enough? Criticism has a way of burrowing into the mind, far deeper than compliments ever do. Left unchecked, it breeds self-doubt, hesitation, and endless mental noise. But the Stoics saw criticism differently. To them it wasn't poison to be feared, nor gospel to be swallowed whole. It was raw material, something to be tested, refined, and when useful, used for growth. The Stoic stance. Epictetus gave a timeless instruction. If anyone tells you that a certain person speaks ill of you, do not make excuses about what is said of you, but answer, "He does not know my other faults, else he would not have mentioned only these." There's wisdom and humor here. Instead of recoiling from criticism, Epictetus invites us to embrace it with perspective, even mock it. Why? Because he understood a truth that overthinkers forget. Words don't define you. Your response does. Marcus Aurelius, criticized constantly as emperor, put it bluntly, "I have often wondered how it is that every man loves himself more than all the rest of men, yet sets less value on his own opinion of himself than on the opinion of others." In other words, why give someone else's judgment more weight than your own? The modern problem. Criticism today is louder than ever. Social media, anonymous comments, performance reviews, gossip at work. Each one offers fertile soil for overthinking. A stranger's insult can ruin your day. A colleague's remark can haunt your week. The problem isn't the criticism. The problem is how we frame it. We either inflate it into a catastrophe, "Everyone thinks I'm useless," or take it as absolute truth, eroding our confidence. The Stoic hack is to reframe criticism into 3 categories. Rondra, useful truths, feedback that helps you grow; neutral noise, opinions that reflect the critic's biases; hidden teachers, even insults that reveal your own triggers. Practical Stoic exercises. Here's how to reframe criticism so it silences overthinking rather than stoking it. 1. The filter test. Ask, is this true? Is it useful, or is it noise? Remarks. If true, improve. If useful, adapt. If noise, discard. Not all criticism deserves your attention. Most belong in the bin. 2. Detach the source. Consider who is speaking. Do they know you well? Do they have expertise in the matter? Do they act with goodwill? Criticism from the ignorant or the malicious is not insight, it's projection. Don't build your self-image from a broken mirror. 3. Turn insult into training. The Stoics saw insults as exercises in self-mastery. If someone mocks you and you remain calm, you win twice. You prove them wrong, and you strengthen your own resilience. Each insult is a chance to practice indifference. 4. Journal the reframe. When criticism lingers, write it out. Remarks. What was said? What part of me reacted? What can I learn? What can I ignore? Often you'll discover the sting came not from the words but from your own insecurity. That awareness is growth. Everyday scenarios. At work, your manager says, "This isn't detailed enough." Fact, not insult. Reframe it as a guide. Add more depth next time. No spiral needed. Online, a stranger comments, "You're clueless." That reveals nothing about you, but it can reveal whether you've mastered your calm. The insult becomes practice. In relationships, a partner says, "You never listen." Painful, yes, but instead of defensiveness, pause. Ask yourself, is there truth here? Can I listen more? If so, criticism becomes a bridge, not a wall. The freedom of reframing. Seneca captured this perfectly. What need is there to weep over parts of life? The whole of it calls for tears. Life will hand you criticism. It's inevitable. But whether it breaks you or builds you is a matter of framing. To the overthinker, criticism is a verdict. To the Stoic, criticism is information. One paralyzes, the other liberates. The 4th Stoic hack to silence overthinking is to reframe criticism. Stop treating it as a wound. See it instead as one of 3 things: a truth to use, a noise to ignore, or a trigger to train against. When you do this, overthinking has nothing to feed on. The remark is processed, filtered, and either acted on or discarded. No endless replay, no late-night spirals. Remember, criticism is not the problem. Your frame is. Change the frame, and you change the weight it carries. And once you master this, you're ready for the next Stoic hack. Hack 5. Embracing discomfort. The practice of leaning into what feels uneasy, and in doing so, starving overthinking of its favorite fuel, fear. Hack 5. Embracing discomfort. At the root of almost every episode of overthinking is fear. Fear of failing, fear of being judged, fear of pain, embarrassment, rejection. Think about the last time you stalled on a decision. Did you hesitate because you didn't know what to do, or because you knew what to do but dreaded the discomfort it might bring? That dread is the fuel of overthinking. Instead of acting, you sit and circle, imagining every possible outcome, trying to avoid the sting of discomfort. The Stoics flipped this script. They didn't avoid discomfort. They sought it out. They trained for it. Why? Because they knew that fear of discomfort creates chains. Embracing it creates freedom. Why we fear discomfort. Modern life tells us comfort is the goal. Softer chairs, faster deliveries, fewer inconveniences. We've built entire industries to shield ourselves from unease. But here's the irony. The more you chase comfort, the more fragile you become. Or small criticism feels unbearable. A minor delay sparks rage. A simple rejection spirals into self-doubt. Overthinking thrives in this fragility. You imagine pain as catastrophic because you never practice holding it. The Stoics, facing war, exile, and death, saw life differently. They taught that discomfort is not the enemy, it is the training ground for resilience. The Stoic practice. Seneca, one of Rome's richest men, deliberately slept on the floor and ate coarse food for days at a time. Why? To remind himself that he could endure poverty if fortune turned. He wrote, "Set aside a certain number of days during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself all the while, 'Is this the condition that I feared?' This is the heart of the hack. When you expose yourself to discomfort willingly, you strip it of its power. Overthinking loses one of its favorite weapons, the whisper of what if I can't handle it. Modern discomforts. You don't need to dress in rags to apply this today. Discomfort surrounds us if we're willing to lean into it. The awkward silence in a meeting, the sweaty palms before a speech, the sting of rejection in dating or business. Instead of avoiding these, you can practice enduring them. Better yet, you can frame them as teachers. Each time you step into discomfort, you grow thicker skin. Each time you stay with unease, you train your mind not to panic. Practical Stoic exercises. Here are 4 ways to embrace discomfort and silence the spirals it creates. 1. Voluntary hardship. Once a week, choose a small hardship. Take a cold shower, fast until noon, walk instead of driving. The point isn't suffering, it's reminding yourself, I can endure this, and if I can endure this, I can endure more. 2. The rejection drill. Practice hearing no, ask for small favors, a discount, an upgrade, help from a stranger. Some will refuse. Good. Each refusal is armor against the fear of rejection, one of overthinking's favorite traps. 3. The discomfort journal. At the end of each day, note one moment of discomfort you faced and how you responded. Over time, you'll see your threshold rising. The very situations that once sent your mind spiraling will barely register. 4. The fear script. Write down your fear in brutal detail. I will embarrass myself in front of everyone. They'll think I'm stupid. I'll never recover. Then read it aloud. Often you'll laugh. When exposed, fear looks flimsy. The act of naming it removes its mystery. Everyday scenarios. Public speaking. Instead of fearing nerves, expect them. Embrace the trembling hands as proof you're alive. Then speak anyway. Job interviews. Rather than replaying every answer, remind yourself, discomfort is normal. If it goes poorly, you've trained for rejection. You'll recover. Overthinking dissolves when discomfort loses its sting. The freedom of hardship. Marcus Aurelius captured it simply. If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. When you fear discomfort, you inflate it into a monster. When you embrace it, you see it for what it is, temporary, survivable, often smaller than you imagined. Overthinking is nothing but a way of hiding from imagined pain. The Stoics remind us, don't hide, step forward, train yourself to meet hardship with calm. The 5th Stoic hack to silence overthinking is to embrace discomfort. Stop asking, how do I avoid pain? Start asking, how do I face it and grow? Each voluntary hardship is a rehearsal for life's involuntary ones. When you train yourself this way, overthinking loses its grip. Fear has no fuel when you've already faced the fire. Next, we'll turn to hack 6, practicing detachment from outcomes. How to act boldly without becoming enslaved to results, freeing yourself from one of overthinking's most suffocating chains, obsession with what might happen next. Hack 6, practicing detachment from outcomes. Most overthinking doesn't happen before the action, it happens after. You send a message, then replay the silence. You give a presentation, then dissect every reaction. You take a risk, then obsess over whether it will pay off. This is the tyranny of outcomes. We want certainty, validation, and success. And because those things live beyond our control, our minds spiral trying to grasp them. The more we cling to outcomes, the more enslaved we become to speculation. The Stoics offered an antidote. Act with purpose, then release attachment to results. Do not seek for things to happen the way you want them to. Rather, wish that what happens happen the way it happens, and you will be happy. This doesn't mean apathy. It means focusing on effort, not outcome, on process, not applause. Marcus Aurelius echoed this in his Meditations. Never let the future disturb you. You will meet it, if you have to, with the same weapons of reason which today arm you against the present. Both men remind us that outcomes are not ours to command. You can control how well you prepare, how deeply you commit, how authentically you act. But once released into the world, events take on a life of their own. Overthinking festers when you try to live inside the outcome before it arrives. Modern outcome traps. Consider the traps we fall into. Social media posts. You upload content, then obsessively refresh likes and comments. The outcome, how others respond, is not yours. The action, sharing with intention, is. Job interviews. You replay every answer afterwards, trying to predict the recruiter's decision. The decision is theirs, not yours. Your preparation and delivery were yours. Relationships. You hesitate to express your feelings because you fear rejection. But rejection is the other person's choice. The courage to speak is yours. When you live chained to outcomes, overthinking multiplies. When you detach, the noise fades. Why detachment is freedom. Think of an archer. Her job is to draw the bow, aim with skill, and release the arrow. Once it leaves her fingers, the outcome, the wind, the target, the result, is no longer hers. If she obsesses over the target, she grows anxious and stiff. If she focuses on her technique, she acts with freedom. This was the metaphor used by ancient Stoics. Focus on the shot, not the bullseye. Overthinking ends when you surrender what isn't yours. Practical Stoic exercises. Here's how to practice detachment in daily life. 1. Set effort goals, not outcome goals. Instead of saying, I must get 1,000 views on this video, set the goal. I will produce 3 videos this week with full effort. The outcome is external. The effort is yours. 2. Release ritual. After completing an action, sending an email, finishing a talk, submitting work, say aloud, it is no longer mine. This physical ritual reinforces detachment. 3. The dice exercise. Marcus Aurelius compared life to dice thrown on a board. You don't control the roll. You control how you play the piece once the dice land. When anxiety rises about results, picture rolling dice and remind yourself, the outcome was never yours. 4. Daily review. Each evening ask, did I act with virtue today? Did I apply effort where it mattered? Judge yourself on what you controlled, not on what followed. Everyday scenarios. Career. Instead of obsessing over whether your promotion will be granted, focus on whether your work today embodies excellence. Promotions depend on others. Excellence depends on you. Creative work. Share your writing, music, or art. Detach from whether it goes viral. Your courage to create and share is the victory. Personal growth. Practice a habit, exercise, meditation, study. Don't attach to visible results in a week. Trust the process. This shift doesn't just silence overthinking. It creates a lighter, more joyful way of living. The courage to act. Many people confuse detachment with passivity. The Stoics were anything but passive. They were emperors, generals, and statesmen. Detachment didn't mean indifference to life. It meant freedom to act boldly, because they weren't paralyzed by fear of results. Seneca reminded us, a man is not affected by events, but by the view he takes of them. When you detach from outcomes, you stop waiting for perfect conditions. You stop hesitating. You act, and let the world respond however it will. The 6th Stoic hack to silence overthinking is to detach from outcomes. Do your work, speak your truth, take the shot, and then release it. The outcome never belonged to you. Your action did. Detach, and you'll find yourself freer, calmer, and more courageous. The spiral of what if loses its grip when you stop demanding certainty from a world that never promised it. Next, we move into the final hack. Hack 7. Living each day as if complete. The ultimate Stoic antidote to overthinking, anchoring yourself so deeply in the present that tomorrow's noise loses its power entirely. Hack 7. Living each day as if complete. Overthinking thrives on one fuel above all: tomorrow. The mind rushes ahead to what might happen, what might go wrong, what people might say. We rehearse conversations not yet spoken, fret over mistakes not yet made, fear losses not yet real. The Stoics had a radical remedy: live each day as if it were already complete. Marcus Aurelius, who lived with war and plague pressing against him daily, reminded himself, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. This isn't morbid, it's clarity. By treating each day as a finished whole, you cut the root of overthinking. Why? Because there is no what if in a life lived fully in the present. If today were your last, would you spend it replaying a colleague's remark? Would you let a stranger's opinion poison your mood? Would you burn hours speculating about an outcome you may never see? No, you'd focus on what matters: action, connection, presence. Why overthinking loves tomorrow. Overthinking feeds on unfinished business. What if I fail tomorrow? What if next week everything collapses? What if they never forgive me? Each thought assumes the future is guaranteed. But the Stoics never assumed. They lived with eyes fixed on now. This didn't make them reckless, quite the opposite. By treating each day as complete, they acted with urgency where it mattered and serenity where it didn't. The freedom of daily completion. Imagine if, every evening, you could say, "Today I lived, today I acted with integrity. If I wake tomorrow, it will be a bonus, but today is already enough." How much overthinking would survive in that mindset? Almost none. Because overthinking thrives only when you feel the need to control tomorrow. Living each day as if in complete silence, that need. Practical Stoic exercises. Here's how to apply this final hack. 1. Morning reminder. When you wake, remind yourself, "This day may be my last. Let me live it as a whole." This isn't fear-mongering, it's a call to clarity. You begin your day with focus, not drift. 2. Evening reflection. At night, ask, if today were my last, did I live well? Did I act in line with my values? If the answer is yes, rest easy. If no, adjust tomorrow. Overthinking fades because each day has its own closure. 3. The memento mori anchor. Carry a small token, a coin, a phrase, even a note on your phone, reminding you could leave life right now. When your mind spirals about next week, glance at it. Return to today. 4. The one action rule. When paralyzed by overthinking, ask, if this were my last day, what one action would matter most? Then do that. The rest can wait. Everyday scenario. Work stress. Instead of replaying whether your project will succeed in 6 months, ask, what's the one step I can take today? Finish it. Then let the day stand complete. Relationships. Instead of brooding over whether a friend or partner will be there in a year, ask, did I show love today? If yes, the day is enough. Personal growth. Instead of tormenting yourself with, will I ever change? Focus on today's choice, to read, to train, to practice. A life is built one complete day at a time. Why this silence is overthinking? Overthinking is an addiction to unfinished futures. The Stoic cure is to finish each day in your mind. See it as a self-contained story, with a beginning, middle, and end. Tomorrow may come, but it will be another story, not the continuation of today's worries. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, confine yourself to the present. It's not that tomorrow doesn't matter, it's that tomorrow will only ever arrive as today. To live well now is to live well always. Closing the circle. So we arrive at the final Stoic hack to silence overthinking. Live each day as if complete. Together, these 7 practices form a fortress of the mind. 1. The discipline of control. 2. Distinguishing opinion from fact. 3. Creating the pause. 4. Reframing criticism. 5. Embracing discomfort. 6. Practicing detachment from outcomes. 7. Living each day as if complete. Each one chips away at the chains of overthinking. Each one restores your mind to its rightful state. Calm, clear, free. Final thought. Overthinking will always knock on the door. The world is uncertain. People will criticize. Outcomes will remain beyond your reach. But with these Stoic hacks, you no longer need to open that door. You can choose clarity over noise, presence over speculation, peace over paralysis. The Stoics weren't superhuman. They were men who faced betrayal, exile, war, and even death. Their genius was not in avoiding life's storms, but in mastering themselves within them. You have that same power, to pause, to reframe, to endure, to release, to live. So the next time your thoughts begin to spiral, remember, today is already complete. You owe nothing to tomorrow. Live fully now, and let the noise fade.